everyone. I'm Suzanne Borden, Moment Magazine's Special Projects Manager, and I'd like to welcome you to Moment Happy Hour for today's Zoominar, Cooking with Chef Vered Guttman. So glad that you could join us this afternoon. Please note that today's Zoominar is being recorded and will be available later this week. We hope you will join us next Tuesday, May 19th, for our next Zoominar, when Broadway performance coach and music director Michael Levine plays piano and introduces us to Broadway songs about the Jewish experience that we are probably not so familiar with. Be sure to visit momentmag.com to register for upcoming Zoominars, access our resource guides, subscribe to the magazine, and to make a donation that will help support our ongoing effort to bring new and engaging opportunities like this, today's cooking demonstration. We're so pleased to welcome Chef Vered Guttman. Vered is a contributor to Moment's Talk of the Table, which celebrates the rich cultural history of Jewish foods from all over the world. It's an intellectual take on some of your favorite foods, as well as little-known dishes, and of course, many delicious recipes. So be sure to visit the Talk of the Table department on Moment's website to see more of Vered's recipes. Throughout today's session, you will have the opportunity to ask Vered questions about each dish, and as she is preparing them. Just type your questions in the Q&A box, which you can find on your screen. We will be sending you the recipes via email, so you don't have to worry about writing them down right now. Now, Vered Guttman specializes in Israeli and Middle Eastern cuisine and is a food writer for Israel's daily newspaper, Haaretz. Her work has also appeared in the Washington Post food section, Slate.com, and NPR. In 2014, Vered cooked for President Obama's Passover Seder at the White House. So please welcome Chef Vered Guttman as she introduces us to some of her favorite dishes that can be made for the upcoming holiday of Shavuot, or really at any time of the year. Vered, please join us.
Hi, thank you. Thanks so much for joining me today as we're cooking some of my favorite cheesy dishes. We will be following the Ashkenazi tradition of cooking dairy dishes for the holiday. Although in this holiday, the holiday of Shavuot, as you probably know, we commemorate Moses bringing the Torah to the Israelites from Mount Sinai. What's the connection to dairy dishes? We'll talk about that in a second. But I want to start with roasting the eggplant because it takes a few minutes. Shauli Guttman, my son, come say hi. Will be behind the sophisticated iPhone camera today. And you can follow me now to the burner. So an eggplant. This one is a good eggplant. You know how I like to choose my eggplants because I've been saying that for a long time. They need to be dark as the night. It's almost dark as the night, and light as a feather. That's how you know. That's when you hope the eggplant doesn't have too many seeds and it's not too bitter. What we're gonna do, as you can see, I have the burner on medium-high heat. It can even be on high, it depends on how strong your burner is. And I put the eggplant directly on the fire. It's gonna take about 8 minutes for it to char all over and be ready. We will know that it's ready when, if I'll press it, it will show no resistance. It will be completely tender. And I'm going to rotate it now every couple of minutes. But as we wait for the eggplant to be ready, I want to go back to the tradition of eating dairy during Shavuot. I wish I could hear you, and maybe some of you have some reasons for why we eat dairy. Because from all the research that I did, I found all these obscure reasons, so obscure that I don't even think they make sense. So the first one has to do with Moses. His mother sent him in the basket on the Nile, and the daughter of Pharaoh pulled him off the water, and he was still a baby. He needed to be breastfed. But baby Moses refused to any woman that they brought him to for her milk. He refused to drink any milk until they located his real biological mother, Yocheved, and that's when he agreed to drink her milk, and that's how he grew up drinking her milk, which was pure. And the rabbis said that he had to have pure milk because he was going to talk to God later. Does the story make sense? Maybe. Okay, I'm going to rotate the eggplant here. There's another reason. I don't know if it's a very familiar thing in Israel. It is, there's this ancient mystical tradition of giving a numerical value to letters in the Hebrew alphabet, where Aleph is 1, Bet is 2, Gimel is 3, etc. Chalav, which is the word for milk in Hebrew, has the value of 40. And those are the 40 days that Moses spent on Mount Sinai before he brought down the Torah to the people. That's another reason why we have milk and dairy for Shavuot. Again, I'm not sure how much sense it makes. And probably there's another reason actually, and Moses is in all of them. When Moses came down from Mount Sinai, he also brought to the Israelites the laws of kashrut. And suddenly the Israelites realized they did not have, all the dishes were not kosher for eating meat dishes. So they had their first dairy meal that was kosher right there and then. So I think what makes much more sense than all of these, Shauli, can you show the eggplant as it progresses? You see it starts to char on some sides, but I want it to get much more tender. This time of the year, Shavuot is happens through during the spring, where for Ashkenazi Jews in Europe, that's the time of the year where they had the most milk available for them to consume, because the cows and sheep would have baby animals were born, and the animals would have, the mother animals would have milk to give. So dairy dishes just made sense for this time of year. And I think Ashkenazi Jews brought this tradition to Israel, and now in Israel, it's a big celebration of all the dairy dishes. The papers are filled with cheesecake recipes and pashtidot, which is like the type of general name for casseroles or kugels, etc. So show the eggplant again. It's gonna take longer than for us to wait until it actually is ready. I can leave it on so I can show you later what it looks like, but you see it really burns, the skin really chars, and that's fine. That's exactly what I want. I just want it to be from all over, and it does start to get softer, but not soft enough. Luckily, I have some prepared eggplant. So let's go back here, and I'm gonna start doing this. So this is a cool down eggplant, charred all over, completely tender. What you wanna do after you take it off the burner is to let it cool down until you can handle it, and then use your hands to peel it. Now, the recipe I gave you was asking for Italian eggplants. I couldn't find them. Usually it's kind of easy to find at Whole Foods, and even Costco has them. But so if you can't, you know, these times many ingredients are unavailable, unfortunately. Regular eggplants taste wonderful, and it's you know, you can use them as well. Sometimes they're a little bitter. This time of the year, as we approach summer, they're usually fine, so I wouldn't worry about it. I have the eggplant here, and I'm gonna chop it now. Thank you to my husband who just threw a towel on me. Okay, let's chop the eggplant. Shauli, do you want to flip the eggplant in the meantime? I'm chopping the eggplant. Now, this eggplant was sitting down for a couple of hours, so it's dry, which is good. You don't want to have too much liquid for the filling of the burek. Now, what is this dish that I'm making? It's called burek. It's called, okay, it's the Israeli version of a Turkish dish called in Turkish borek, which is a pastry filled with usually cheese, spinach sometimes. Different fillings are available in different regions. The Jews from the Balkan brought the love for burek to Israel. In Israel, it's called burekas. It sounds like in plural, but I think it's actually the Ladino version of the word. Okay, I'm adding a little bit of parsley. And the main difference between the Israeli borek and the Turkish one is that while the Turkish is using phyllo dough or yufka, which is a homemade, a little bit thicker dough, or sometimes filas, which is something between phyllo and puff pastries. Israelis who are maybe lazier use puff pastry, and it's actually really delicious, and that's what I'm going to do today. I'm adding a lot of feta to the filling, and I'm going to gently mix it. I don't want to mush it too much. I just want to have it nicely mixed. Maybe you noticed that I had some of the charred skin of the eggplant. It was still left on the flesh, and that's fine. It actually adds to the flavor, like a smoky flavor. It's really nice. So this is ready. The filling is ready, and I'm gonna go to making the pastry itself. So I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of flour here, just so the puff pastry will not stuck. Now, when you work with puff pastry, it's better to keep it cool in the fridge until the last minute. Here we go. Shauli, how is the eggplant doing? Yeah, do you think? I think it may be ready, or soon, maybe soon. Okay, this puff pastry, it's good because it's already cut to the size that I like. I'm gonna we have the 2 square of dough here, and what I'm gonna do is, Shauli, can you show this? Okay, let's do it this way. I'm going to connect the 2 of them. Like that, into one long rectangular piece. If you'll excuse me for a second, Shauli, you can come to the eggplant here for a second. This is nicely charred now, and we can put it in here. It may need a few more minutes. It will make a big mess of your burner and stovetop, but it's totally worth it. Okay, let's go back here. Okay, so this rectangle, I'm gonna cut it into 2 lengthwise. And each one of these pieces, I'm going to fill with half of our filling. Now you can do it with eggplant and feta as I did, which is a flavor that I love. You can do any mixture of cheese, like ricotta cheese with feta. Some people do it even with meat. Of course, you can do the traditional feta and cooked spinach or Swiss chard, which is wonderful. With the feta, it's basically the spanakopita. And again, the main difference is the use of puff pastry, which is just a really nice combination. So I'm just folding the dough on top of the filling, and then folding the other side and trying to seal it together at the top as much as possible. Okay, same with the second one. How easy is that? Okay. If your puff pastry does not come pre-rolled this way, you know, just roll it with a little bit of flour, as I did here, and do it about the size that I showed. I'm taking one of these snakes and starting to roll it on a parchment paper lined sheet, cooking sheet. Here we go, and I continue with the second one the same way, and just folding the end under it. Now, to finish it up, we're gonna brush it with an egg, lightly beaten egg. You can use just the yolk with a little bit of water or the whole egg. Okay, so I'm gonna brush it nicely. Try not to brush the paper and not, you see I'm trying to avoid touching with the egg from the pastry itself to the paper, because it will prevent it from puffing. We want it to be puffy and beautiful. After that, we're gonna take some yellow sesame seeds. These are lightly toasted, but you don't have to have them pre-toasted this way. Now, with any puff pastry, it's better if you freeze it. I know it sounds weird. It's better if you freeze it before you bake it. It will puff even nicer in the oven. What I'm using now, Shaul is reminding me to tell you, is black sesame seeds. They just look nice together. And these are available in Asian grocery stores and Whole Foods. But you know, we don't have much time here today, so I'm gonna put it directly from here to the oven. Surely you can follow me. The oven is already at 325 degrees, and I'm gonna try to remember to check it in about half an hour. Maybe you can put the timer, Shirley, and we'll go back to it, and hopefully we'll have it ready by the end of the class. So that was the first dish. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes, if anybody has any questions, you can type them in the Q&A box. And also, just to let you know, we will be emailing all of these recipes to you, if not today, tomorrow.
Perfect. Thank you. So let's go.
You're ready to go on to the next dish.
Perfect. Yes. The next dish talks about another tradition for Shavuot. Shavuot is really, originally it is the holiday of wheat harvest. Many of the Jewish holidays are really harvest and farming related holidays, and Shavuot is one of them. So in Israel, and I assume in other places too, what people are doing, they're bringing baskets of all the fresh fruit and veggies, originally that they bring from their own farms. Of course, just they bring it from their supermarket, but it's still nice. Kids come all dressed in white and with flowers in their hair, and just bring the new crops of the season. So this salad, I was trying to combine all the 7 species of the land of Israel, which include, I'm probably not going to remember, wheat and barley, figs and dates, and it includes also olives, which is the olive oil, and grapes, which can be wine. My husband is saying I had only 6. Yes, what's the 7th one? He doesn't know. Pomegranate. We have 7, yay. And we're gonna start with the figs. By the way, dates that are mentioned as part of the 7 species of the land of Israel. Some people think what it really means is honey, because dates at the time, honey at the time, was really the syrup from the dates, like the date molasses. What is called in Israel nowadays silan, or date honey, but it's really date molasses. I'm chopping the figs, and this may be the only complicated, sophisticated part of this dish. Surely, let's go here. I'm going to fry these figs with some, excuse me, sorry. Okay, I'm gonna use some butter. And some brown sugar. Let the butter melt a little bit. And I'm gonna add the figs. Oops. These are dried figs, if I didn't mention it. Just a second. We're gonna let them cook for a few minutes until they become a little crispy, just a little bit, and a little bit golden and caramelized also with all the sugar and butter. Okay, I think we can leave this here. Let me add a little more butter to be on the safe side. So we still have some dairy in this dish also. Okay, I think we can leave it here and go back to the cutting board. Okay. So what I have here are pre-cooked wheat, and I have some arugula in the bowl. Now you can use, if you're not interested in the symbolic meaning of the wheat in here, being the harvest, the holiday of harvest, you can use rice instead, or farro, which is another old wheat actually, but from Italy. Anything is fine, any grain that you like is fine. I'm gonna add some red onion, radishes, and I have some herbs here that I'm gonna chop. Mint. Let's remove some of the stalks. Shauli, in the meantime, Shauli is mixing the figs, and he's doing it in the most professional way. Okay, chopping the mint. You can use any mix of herbs that you like. You don't need to chop there too fine. It's a salad, so it's not just a garnish. So yeah, Sholi, what does it look like? Do you think it's ready? Yeah, so let's bring the camera and look at it. Nice. Yeah, you can see some brown spots in them, so it is ready. Let me bring okay, plate. Sorry about that. Just move it to the plate and let it cool down a little bit. These are gonna be crispy and wonderful at the end. Okay, so the herbs that I'm using are flat parsley, mint, and cilantro. You can use any combination you like, of course. As you probably notice, I do not remove the stems from the parsley or from the cilantro. The stems are fine. They're very thin. They're full of flavor. It's completely fine to keep them on. Okay, parsley. Okay. Beautiful. Now we're gonna add some lemon juice directly in. Okay. And a little bit of salt. Well, not so little, but olive oil. And let's mix it. Okay, at this point, I can add the toppings, sliced dates, removing the pits, closing them back together, and just slice them into rounds. Okay. So it's a sweet, sour pomegranate seed, just so beautiful. I'm gonna wait with the figs until they cool down. Okay, I have hazelnuts here that are really toasted. You can see how brown they are. You can buy toasted, peeled hazelnuts at Trader Joe's, but the truth is they're not as toasted as I like them, so I toast them even further. But this is really up to you. The way to toast them, and really any large quantity of nuts, is to do it in a 350 degrees oven, and you need to shake you put them in a pan and you shake the pan every few minutes to make sure that they don't burn on one side. With hazelnuts, it can take even up to half an hour. And if you had a good Vitamix, you can make the best unbelievable Nutella this way. Yes, Shirley, I have good experience with that. Okay, chopped nuts, we're gonna put them in. Mix again. It's beautiful with all these colors. Okay, let's move this to the side. And I'm gonna top it with these candied, warm candied figs. And here's another celebration of the land of Israel for this holiday. Here we go. Okay.
Vered, that looks
And
absolutely delicious.
thank you so much. Any questions, anyone?
Yeah, well, actually, we have a few questions from the previous recipe.
Yes, please.
Someone would like to know in the bureka if you could use Israeli feta, and maybe you could also explain the difference between Israeli feta and the feta that we are used to buying in the supermarket here.
That's a good question. So feta, just like champagne, can only come now from Greece. The official name feta is only Greek now, and it's fair. But the feta that I use is actually French. It's French feta, and I just think it's wonderful. It's called Velbrezo. It is not kosher. It's available at Whole Foods. Israeli feta is not as sharp as the Greek one. The French feta is not as sharp either, but it is salty and it's tender. And actually, Israeli feta works wonderfully for this dish and for any burek, for any pastry.
Thank you. Is the consistency any different between the Israeli and the French?
The French one is much more tender. In Israel, you have different types of feta. We have, okay, it's funny to call it Israeli. There's the Bulgarian feta that you can find in Israel. You can find it in here too. And then there's the one from Safed. There's the Iraqi one that's very dry. So they're all different. But the one that's called Israeli, that is sold in the United States, is kind of similar to the Greek one in the texture and how firm it is. The French feta that I'm talking about, Velbrezo, it's much more soft and creamy. That's one of the reasons I like it. But again, for pastries, the Israeli feta is actually excellent, an excellent option.
Great, thank you. Also, someone would like to know, instead of charring the eggplant on the stove, can you cook it in the oven first?
Yes, actually with the recipes that you're gonna get, you'll see there are 3 different options. One of them definitely in the oven. You can do it on 475 degrees Fahrenheit, and just again char it the same way, rotate it every few minutes until the skin is completely charred, until the flesh is very tender. Okay. And actually, what many people do is they go to one of the many Middle Eastern stores that we have in the DC suburbs and near most big cities in the United States, and you can buy jarred, really good jarred roasted eggplant and just use that.
Okay. Someone just wanted to add a comment, another connection to dairy foods in the biblical story of Yael, who single-handedly saved her people by killing a general bent on their destruction. So it can also be interpreted as a feminist story as well, I guess similar to the story of Judith during Hanukkah.
Exactly, which I wrote for Moment Magazine, if I remember correctly. Yes. Those are lovely stories. But I really think all those stories and their connection to, mainly the explanation that I gave, then their connection to Shavuot came in hindsight after Ashkenazi Jews in the Middle Ages already started serving dairy for Shavuot.
Sure.
But yes, definitely, that's a good one.
And someone would also like to know what olive oil you use.
Oh, yeah. I use this California one. It's so good. It's the best one. I get it at Whole Foods. Okay. It just tastes wonderful. It's relatively expensive, not terribly, but so I usually use it for salad as a finishing oil.
Any suggestions on how to make a gluten-free burrito if they can't use the puff pastry that you used?
What people are started doing, there's no real solution. I mean, it's not a gluten-free thing, but there's a new thing of doing like hand-sized burekas in Israel using rice paper, and that's pretty nice and healthy and tasty. So yeah.
If you put the pastry in the freezer before it goes into the oven, how long should it be in there?
So, you know, if it's there for a couple of hours, then it's completely frozen and it's nice. It will puff slowly and will puff a lot. So that will be the ideal. It can be longer than that, but anytime, like as long as it's cold. Again, I just put it directly after working with it. It's gonna be fine as well. It's not, the difference is not that huge. But if you have the half an hour, 1 hour to put it in the freezer, it's gonna, you will see the difference. It's gonna be nice.
Great. And once it goes into the oven, should the baking dish be put in the middle part of the oven, or does that not matter?
It depends on your oven, but in general, yes. Let's say the bottom third of the oven, not completely at the bottom, but
Okay.
I would say, yeah.
Okay.
You depends on your oven. If it burns really from the bottom, don't put it too low.
Right. I guess if you have a convection oven, that might help circulating the air.
Yes, if you have more than one tray. Otherwise,
Right.
you don't need to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Someone has a question about the salad. You mentioned that you pre-roasted the wheat.
Pre-cooked the wheat.
You pre-cook the wheat. So I'm assuming in your directions that we're going to send everybody, it talks about how to do that.
Exactly, yes.
Great.
It's very easy. You cook it more or less like rice.
Great. And lastly, before we move on to the next recipe, someone would like to know if there's an equivalent to for givnat zvat.
For what?
Givnat zvat? Zvat?
Oh, gvina tzfatit, or gvina mitzfat.
Can you explain what that is? Can you explain what that is?
So Tzfat is Safed. It's the city in North Israel. There's Gvina Tzfatit is like it's a type of, it's a cheese from there. It's a salty cheese. So it's kind of similar to feta. It's much more dry. It's more similar to the Iraqi feta, but that doesn't help anyone, I guess. I don't think I saw any in the United States, actually. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so, I think we're ready to move on to your Romanian dish.
Perfect. Okay, so this Romanian dish is like, it's wonderful. My friend Yoav, who comes from a Romanian, Bulgarian family, his mother makes this, and he reminded me of this dish, and his mother sent me the wonderful recipe, and that's what we're gonna do. It's basically Romanians, just like the Italians, they use polenta and like ground dried cornmeal in their dishes. They have a type of polenta dish that's called mamaliga, and malai is actually the word for corn, and that's what, and this dish that we're gonna make is really, it's a type of a cornbread, I would say, but it has tons of cream and cheese and cream and yogurt and more cream, so it's really good. And then you serve it with cream, even better. So Shauli, let's go here. I want to take a look very quickly on our spanakopita / burekas. It still needs time. Okay, so the next dish, the malai, we're gonna do it in the mixer, fitted with a flat beater. I'm starting with polenta, flour, regular flour, all-purpose flour, a little bit of 1 teaspoon of baking powder, okay, salt, and sugar. Okay, and we're gonna beat it all together very quickly. And now I'm going to start adding 6 eggs, one after the other. Now, Shauli told me that if you want to be like a professional chef, which I am definitely not, you break the egg on the surface. That worked, and not on the side of the dish. Okay, I can do it. I pride myself for being a home cook. Okay, now the last one. Okay, and now, see how quick this is. I have, I'm gonna reduce the mixer. I have Greek yogurt, 1 pound of Greek yogurt, to be precise. Okay, 1 pound cottage cheese. Now, in Romania, they use Urda cheese, which is a type of ricotta cheese. You can use ricotta. In Israel, they use the cheese that we call white cheese, which is really the German Quark cheese. I'm going to go back to that in a second, but actually, to be closer to the Romanian version, you can just use ricotta. We had sour cream, cottage cheese, and Greek yogurt.
Can any of those products be used in a light version, or should they be full fat?
Yes, here you can use light version, that's fine. And we're ready, actually. Okay. Shauli, let's move over there, maybe. Okay. I'm gonna spray the pan with oil. Okay. And here we go. Oh, it was not mixed very well. My mixer did not mix all the way through, but I'm gonna mix it here a little bit. That's it. This thing goes to the oven until it's ready, about 45 minutes, and we're done. That's pretty quick. It's really delicious. It's part cake, part bread, just wonderful. Some versions have vanilla in it, but for me, it limits it to being a cake then. We served it last week at home with some, like a Mexican style, with avocado and salsa and cilantro. That was really nice. So you can add vanilla if you want to, but you can also leave it as it is. I'm gonna put it in the oven, just a second. Let's see. Okay.
Does anybody have any questions about this dish? Vered, to include vanilla, could you just use vanilla Greek yogurt instead of plain Greek yogurt?
I think that's possible, actually. I didn't think about it, but you can. I don't see why not. You can add vanilla extract, so you know, just 1 teaspoon. That will be fine.
Okay.
Any more questions? Or that was too quick. Like,
that was so quick.
Everyone is shocked.
I think we're good. We're good to go for the finale of the cheesecake. Do you want to describe a little bit the difference between Israeli cheesecake versus the New York style cheesecake so many Americans are used to?
Yes, I would love to, because it's a topic that's dear to my heart. Let me take out the Israeli cheese, so then I can explain what I'm talking about.
Sure. And real quickly, if it doesn't throw you, somebody just asked if you could use cornmeal in the last recipe.
In the malai recipe, yes, of
Yes.
course, yeah. Yeah.
All right, on to the cheesecake.
Oh, cornmeal, if it's ground very fine like flour, then no. It should be more like polenta, like thicker, like farina or polenta. It cannot be like flour because it's going to be too dense. Is that,
Yep,
does that, so it can be grits or, so I guess actually not corn flour, it's going to be
somebody else asked
too fine.
Somebody else asked if you could use almond meal, but I guess almond meal might be the same thing, too fine.
Almond meal does not absorb liquid, and cornmeal does. So it's not going to be, I don't think it's going to work for that reason.
All right, thank you. We're ready for the cheesecake.
Perfect. So, Sholi, can you bring all these three, the three containers there? So the main difference between Israeli cheesecakes and the American New York style cheesecake is the cheese. And while the American, the New York style cheesecake uses cream cheese, or what we call in Israel fat cheese, we use cheese from the style that's called Quark. In Israel, we simply call it white cheese. It's still from the time when we had the white cheese, Quark, and the yellow cheese, which was like Edam style yellow cheese. And so the Israeli cheesecake, I'm not making the traditional one today because I'm making a no-bake cheesecake. But either way, we use this type of cheese. So the cake is sweet and moist, but somehow it's also light, and it's just wonderful. I mean, you can finish half a tray without even noticing. While with the New York style cake, you take 2 bites and you can't do it anymore because it's so fat. I mean, maybe you notice, but I really think that Israeli style cheesecake is much superior to any other cheesecake. So that's what we're gonna do today. So the Israeli cheese is not easy to find in the United States. You can find it in some kosher supermarkets. In the DC area, you can find it the Kosher Mart, for example, in Rockville. But the thing is, it's not always there. It comes from another country. You cannot rely on finding them. So you have other options. One of them is, as I mentioned, the Quark cheese. It's a German style, very creamy cheese. It's almost like a Greek yogurt. And really the Israelis learned it from the German Templars who came and lived in Israel at the beginning of the 20th century. They left when the Nazis, okay, you can turn it off, Sholi, it's not ready. They left, they were actually asked to leave Israel when the Nazis movement rose in Europe. And what they left behind them is the tradition of making this cheese and the cheesecakes. So you can use this. This is available at Whole Foods sometimes. For example, I just bought everything that they had in the branch next to my house. So it's not always available either. Another option is Turkish labne. You probably all know about labne. Turkish labne is thicker than the Quark or the Israeli white cheese, but it's not as sour as the regular labne. So it's actually perfect for cakes. Another option that you'll see with the recipes that we're going to send you is to do some kind of a mix of cream cheese with Greek yogurt and sour cream that kind of creates the same texture and acidity that the Israeli cake has. So we're going to start, although it's a non-baked cheesecake, we still need to bake the crust at the bottom and at the top. So that's what we're going to do now. Just a second, another thing from the oven.
So just while you're getting your stuff out of the refrigerator, I am told
Yeah,
that you can
oven.
find some of the Quark cheese at Wegmans. That you can find the Lebna at
Oh, really?
at Russian. You can find the Lebna at Russian markets. And someone wants to know if you could use mascarpone cheese.
Mascarpone cheese is very fat, so so no. But I'm really glad to hear. I'm not sure about Russian supermarkets. I never saw it, and Russian supermarkets. I go a lot to Russian supermarkets, but you know, I'm happy to try.
Mom's Organic Market also carries the Quark.
That's perfect. That's so nice to know. I'm really excited. Just a second, Shauli, you wait here, and I'm going to be back in a second. Sorry about that. I need to take some things that I had before. So what I had there so far is flour, all-purpose flour. I'm adding a little bit baking powder. I had some sugar there. I'm gonna add some salt. Okay, and I have butter here. Okay, what I'm doing here is actually half the quantity of the crust, because I already have another half fully baked that I prepared in advance. So I'm only making half in here. Okay, so we put all that in the food processor. Just pulse very quickly so it crumbles. I just added 1 egg yolk, crumble it a little more, and then because it is not as crumbled as I want it to be, I'm gonna add some cold water. Like a couple of tablespoons. Okay, we're done. Actually, let's move, Shauli, let's move here. Okay, so can you see that it's mainly crumbs? I'm gonna spray the pan, the cake pan. I have the cake pan and I have another pan with just lined with parchment paper. Okay, I'm sorry. Here we go. So some of the crumbs, about 1/3 of the crumbs I'm gonna put on this tray and the rest in the cake pan. This one I can just leave this way. The main pan, I'm just using my fingers to press it down. Okay. Okay, and you know, you don't want to press it too much because you want it to be a little fluffy, not too hard. And now these two go to the oven for about 12, 15, maybe even 18 minutes, depending on how crowded your oven is. This oven is kind of crowded at this point. I'll just leave it out. Okay, so luckily I have pre-baked crumbs and the bottom, they're right here, and I'm gonna use them for the cake today. Now, what you want to do is after you bake them, you just bake them. You see, they don't even change the color. You just want it to be kind of firm, not more than that. They can turn a little bit golden. You don't want to bake it too much. And you want them to be fully cooled down before you continue with the no-bake filling. Now, for that, we're going to move back to the mixer. I'm going to need to take another thing from here. More of the cheese, cream. So yeah, since the cheese is not very fat, use 2 cups of heavy cream. Let's go there. Okay. Just a second. Shauli, stop eating from everything around you. Okay, in this case,
since you're using a different kind of cheese, does the cheese need to sit out a little bit to get soft like you would typically do with cream cheese, or it's good to go right from the fridge?
I didn't show you how it is in the inside. It's very soft. It's a very soft cheese. So I do not need to let it sit. Just a second. I need to grab spoon. I can show you better what it looks like. It's very creamy and very soft, like yogurt. But yogurt will not hold it as this will. So you can't just use yogurt instead. Yogurt is not strong enough to hold the cake. So I'm starting by whipping cream and sugar. My real weapon here, besides for the cheese, is instant vanilla pudding. Yum. I'm waiting for it to be to
Vered, it's a little hard to hear you at the moment. Can you tell us
I'm not speaking right now. So,
okay. Can you tell us what you just put in that package?
Yes, I put 2 cups of whipping cream and 10 tablespoons of sugar. I'm waiting for the cream to whip. I know it makes a lot of noise, so I'm not gonna talk.
Just to remind everybody, we will be sending you in the next day or so a copy of all of the recipes that have been made today, along with a link back to a recording of today's Zoominar, so you can follow along if you would like.
Okay, as you can see, the cream is almost whipped. It's still tender, but you can see how thickened it got. I'm now going to add the vanilla pudding powder that will make it very thick in a second. Let me close down first, turn it off for a second and scrape the sides before I continue. So now with the mixer running on low, I'm gonna add 1.5 pounds of the Quark cheese. Oops. Mm. I'm so excited to hear that you can get it in more places. It's wonderful. Because we eat it at home with everything, like on a slice of toast with tomato and salt, and of course, all the different types of cheesecakes. And as a finishing touch, I'm adding a zest of 1 lemon. And this is it. It's very simple, but because the cheese is a little sour itself, and light and just wonderful, the cake is wonderful too. Okay. Okay. Now, as I said, the dough is only half of the real quantity of the real recipe. So I'm gonna use only half of the filling also. The second half I'm gonna use when the one I demonstrated to you will be ready. Okay. Just make it flat in here. Okay, and now we have what we have here. We can crumble this with our hands and just sprinkle it all over here. So this cake in Israel, it's actually called crumb cheesecake. Wow. And it's one of the favorite versions. Shauli behind the camera here is licking the butter from the mixer. He's still a kid, so. Oh, and my dog just arrived. Shalom, Snoopy. I'm sure Snoopy will make sure to eat all the crumbs from the floor. Okay, here we go. Now it really needs to sit in the fridge for a few hours before you can eat it. It's very easy. As you can see, the hardest part is really to find a place where you can get Quark or the Israeli white cheese. But other than that, it's a very easy cake, as you can see. So this is ready. I want to check now to see if the burekas is ready. It's not completely ready, but look at that. Can you see how puffy it is? Oh, okay, it's hot also. I'm gonna put it back in the oven because it's not ready. We'll check it again in a few minutes. If you have questions for me in the meantime, okay, then we can do that. So any question?
Well, I think at this point we need to kind of wrap things up. So
Sure.
if anybody has any other additional questions, you can email them and we'll try and get them answered. First of all, I want to thank you. This was such a fun Zoominar today. And I guess we know you all are having a very good meal tonight. Thank you so much for participating, and I want to thank everybody else for joining us. If you make these dishes at home, please share them with us on social media, tag us on Facebook. We'd love to see everything that you make from these recipes. Also, again, go to the Moment website, go to the Talk of the Table department, and you can see more delicious recipes by Vered. And you can also check out the little known tradition of eating dairy also on Hanukkah. So again, thank you very much, and have a good night. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.